So welcome everybody for this webinar. Not only the attendees, but also the registrants. And under the handouts tab, you will find the presentation in a PDF file and a document with exercises to practice paraphrasing. Of course, both things are going to be sent to the registrars. Okay, so welcome everybody, Hannah, Julian, Heidi, Leaks, and so on. Welcome to today's webinar that is focused on how to perform paraphrasing, an essential element of academic writing that let us present and discuss other people's ideas, showing at the same time our ability to understand and explain them. Today's journey starts at other people's mind to get to our own mind and our interpretation of their ideas. Something that is more interesting than it may seem at first sight. Okay, so let's travel between minds. Look at this cartoon. This cartoon illustrates how confused many people can be when doing paraphrasing. It is more than reordering words. In fact, much more than that. Such a confusion hinders success when writing academically, and that's the reason for conducting this webinar. Hi, Mary. And hi, Tamra, and Jennifer, and Suganti. Okay. To clarify confusion about paraphrasing and to give you suggestions to do it rightly, I have set up this agenda, which begins by talking about three related but different concepts, and that then will be focused on paraphrasing. Okay, so quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing are three actions you are expected to do when writing academic texts. As you will see, they are related but are different. And that's why you need to understand these concepts before learning about how to improve your paraphrases. You need to know each one of these concepts so you can then focus on paraphrases in a more relaxed and produced and productive way. And here you have the similarities and differences among the three concepts. In all of them, the author must be acknowledged and meaning preserved. The length varies from exactly the same of the original text to more or fewer words. In paraphrasing and summarizing, your own words must be used, and that is the characteristic that makes them difficult for most students. Use different words while keeping the same meaning. Hi, Hector, welcome back. He's sending all of us greetings from University of Houston, Texas. All right. These are the reasons why quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing are used in academic writing. They lead you to the evaluation of ideas and therefore critical analysis. Yes, You cannot write a solid and appropriate discussion without interpreting the ideas you read, and also evaluating its validity and consistency, acknowledging the sources and establishing their appropriateness to your own point of view. Doing these writing tasks effectively, especially the last two, shows how well you understand what you read. I mean, you cannot paraphrase, summarize, and even quote without understanding what you have read. No, that's not possible. And you will see how it works right now. So, also welcome Sarah, Ersin, Ruth, 2862, and 9564, and Jessica. Okay, let's see an example of each one so you can have a very good idea of what we are dealing with. This is an example of quoting. If you check it, it is clear that the characteristics presented in the previous table are reflected in the quotation. Same words, and consequently, same length, the use of quotation marks, and the acknowledgement of the author. This is guided quotation, or quoting, in fact. Next, let's see an example of paraphrasing, the focus of today's webinar. In this case, the writer expressed the same meaning of the original text using their own words. And that's the tricky point. That's the point. That's the thing that you need to know how to do it. And you are going to see that today. There are two more words in this example, and the source is acknowledge. Okay? So it's not the same length of words, or it's the same number of words, but it preserves the meaning, which is the most important part of all these three things. Now, let's see an example of summarizing. Everybody think that they can or they know how to summarize text, and usually they do it using the exact words of the author. Look at this. If you check both texts, the new text is shorter but keeps the meaning of the original one. Also, the source is acknowledged, as in any one of these three actions, and the writer's own words are used. By the way, I'm very proud of this example because it is part of one of the dissertation, the doctoral dissertation of one of my mentees, who won the award for the best dissertation of the year 2010. And I was, and I still am very proud of his work. And of course, of my work too. Okay. So, you may wonder when you should use each of these actions. Here you have the answer. The table presented lets you know that specifically. By rule, the number of guided quotations that you are expected to use in your dissertation or in your thesis should not be more than the 10% of your citations. That means that 90% of your citations must be done by paraphrasing or summarizing. And you may ask, why? It's so easy to copy and paste the words of another person. Well, the reason is because direct quotations hinder the flow of the text and do not reflect your understanding of the ideas. Okay? So, as the table shows, you use them in the case that the author's exact words are absolutely necessary to transmit or emphasize the message intended by the source. Is that moment in which you say, okay, come on, I cannot do it better than, I cannot express the idea better than in this way, in the way that the author did it. But remember that you can use that trick only 20% of the times. Paraphrasing, on the other hand, is used to demonstrate your understanding of what you read and to perform critical analysis. Important. You need to paraphrase in order to show how much you have understood something, and you need that to do critical analysis. Summarizing is used when you want to present the main ideas of a source, the author's point of view, and also compare different perspectives. Okay? Oh, we have more people. Welcome back, Natch, Ruth, and so on. Okay. So, it's time to focus on the topic of this webinar, paraphrasing. Now that you know the difference between quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing, let's begin exploring what paraphrasing is. Here you have two definitions of paraphrasing. The simplest one and a functional definition. The simplest one lets you view the essence of the task, which is transmit the same meaning using your own words. Simple? Yes. But remember the cartoon we saw at the beginning of this webinar. Many people believe that just rearranging the original words can be considered paraphrasing. We will discuss this later. Now, the functional definition expands the definition, the previous one, to include the requirement of keeping the meaning and sense of the original text. And that's the definition that applies to academic writer, is to illustrate or to show your understanding, but keeping the meaning and the sense of the original text. Well, now you know that you should use your own words to express the same meaning. And these are the implications of doing paraphrasing. If you read them, you will realize how important paraphrasing is in academic writing. It is related to your understanding of ideas, and through it, you can improve your ability to grasp what other people write. It helps you write text whose ideas flow and reflect even the emotions they convey. When you paraphrase, you are able to recall messages in an easier way, because what you write is not a message learned by heart, but a message you created through your own interpretation. Therefore, it's your text and not someone else. Something that you can even transfer to other contexts because it's your creation. Okay, the input is the idea of another person, but the paraphrase is your creation. So the mental process involved is complex since it needs reflective reading, critical analysis, and critical writing. Have you realized that before? Or perhaps you have faced the paraphrasing task as something that you can make mechanically by just changing words and their order? No, don't do it because it's a demanding cognitive task. However, the good news is that you can learn how to do it, and that's why we are here today. Here is an example of poor paraphrasing of the source. You have the original text, then you have poor paraphrasing, and then better paraphrasing. Even though the student is citing correctly, Thompson's 2009, underlined words are simply synonymous of words used in the original source. You cannot see interpretation there. And you can also see how the sentence structure is the same for both the original source and this paraphrase. And this is what many people believe paraphrasing is. On the right side of the slide, you have a better paraphrase text. And I invite you to analyze both texts and to identify why one is better than the other. Ruth says that, do I need to wait? I can't hear or see anything. Well, let's write down that she should. Okay. Thank you, everybody that is everybody is helping Ruth. Okay. Let's continue. Now you know what paraphrasing is and what it is not. Then it's time to focus on how to perform it in a more effective way. And let's begin by knowing what steps or stages you can use to achieve that. Like in any complex task, there are different suggested steps to follow. I'm going to present some of them so you can choose the one that best appeals to your cognitive and learning style. You need to feel comfortable with what you are doing. Among a good number of approaches, I have selected one approach to use 4 steps, 3 approaches to do it in 5 steps, and another one with 6 steps. Of course, there are others of 7 and 8 steps that you can search for if you consider that none of these presented today satisfies your style. Okay, so time to check courses of actions. The first approach consists of 4 steps. As you can see, it is focused on reflecting upon what you have read and giving you the opportunity to express your interpretation freely. Then you compare both versions so as to be sure that you didn't omit important information and also that the text flows easily. This is the first 5 steps approach. If you compare it to the previous one, you will realize they are very, very similar. But this one includes a step to explain the text loud. This is an important action because it lets you know how much you have understood the text. If there is hesitation, it means your comprehension was not enough to create a paraphrase, and you need to begin the process again. That may save you a lot of time and frustration. And it's good if you can explain the text out loud to other people, to a friend, to a peer, and so on. Because in that way, you will be sure that what you are expressing, the other person is really understanding. If such understanding doesn't happen, oh, you have to go back to read. This approach, the second one of 5 steps, emphasizes both your understanding indicated by how accurate your writing reflects what is important in the original text, not what is exactly similar, but what is important in the original text, and also the need to make formal corrections and acknowledge the source. So here in this approach, you pay very careful attention to the structure, the wording, and the way that the text flows. The last 5 steps approach is very similar to the previous one, but it emphasizes actions that will help you make a good paraphrase of the original text. Okay? Of course, since you have under the handouts tab, you have the presentation and also a document to practice. You can do this better when you check those papers and also when you check the recording of this webinar. Okay? And this illustrates one of the most used approaches, the one of 6 steps. Again, there are similarities to the other approaches. Perhaps the most obvious difference is step 4. Look at step 4, in which you are suggested to review the paraphrased text and make changes if any part is exactly the same as the original text. So is that step in which you check if you have kept the original structure of the original word. Of course, the key point of all these approaches, besides their adequacy to your cognitive and learning style, is how the selected approach lets you write a solid paraphrase. To know that, you have to try them, all of them, and then analyze which one helps you write the best possible paraphrase. That's why I have included a document for you to practice. Hello, Harun. Okay. And also BB and the stewards. And now I'm going to present you some paraphrases, techniques, and examples That's especially for you, Annalie. Okay. Please be aware that the best way to create a good paraphrase is to use more than one of the techniques in the same text. And this is important. I want you to remember this. It's not with the same text, you don't have to use just one way of doing paraphrase. You are not only allowed but also encouraged to use more than one, and that combination will help you to avoid that your paraphrase seems too similar to the original text. Okay, let's go with the techniques. The first technique is to change the focus of the first, or also called topic sentence, but without changing the meaning of the original text. Look at these two texts. Could you realize how the paraphrase was created? Could you tell why there is not a meaning change? Look at that. Check that. Look how the paraphrase text has a different focus for this, which is the topic or the first sentence of the original text. The next technique is one of the most used when paraphrasing. Please check both the original and the paraphrase text and tell if the paraphrase text reflects only the use of synonyms, or perhaps was any other thing done. It's just a matter of using synonyms, or something else was done. That's another point to reflect, okay? This technique is based on using different forms of words that have the same meaning. In this example, the verbal form failed of the original text is changed to the noun failure without changing the meaning of the text. But can you see other changes? Another good questions to reflect. I can guess that you are thinking, oh my God, today I will have to reflect a lot of things. And that's true, my dear. But the more you reflect about these techniques, and the more you practice them, and the more you combine them in to paraphrase an original text, the better your paraphrases will be, the better your interpretations of ideas will be, and the better your text will be considered by your readers. In this example, the grammatical structure of the original text was changed together with something else. What another thing was done? See, change of grammatical structure, but something else was done. This technique relies on a different interpretation of what? Of numbers and percentages. Can you identify what the changes are? Look at them. The meaning is the same, but the way in which those numbers and percentages are presented in the paraphrase text is different from the way on the original one. In this example, passive voice was changed to active one. And that's something that is usually required in thesis and dissertation. So pay close attention to this technique. Definition. This is something that you have to use in your papers. You are expected to define things. And it seems very easy just to copy and paste a definition. But that's not what you are expected to do. You are expected to show interpretation of what you have read. Therefore, as you can see in the example, a definition can be easily paraphrased because they are suitable to use a different structure. Do you know what the writer did? Check it. And this is the final technique I will present today. That doesn't mean that there are no others. But can you tell what was done to paraphrase the original text? Of course, using different connecting words. Hector says, yeah, not sure if you have done these webinars before, but we'll get access to the recording afterward. We are going to send you the recording, and you can right now download the 2 documents that I uploaded to the handouts tab. Hello, kindly asking if this will be recorded. It is being recorded, and it will be sent to you together with the presentation in PDF form file and a Word document with exercises. Don't think that I'm putting this and nothing, that you have to learn everything right now. No, my presentation is basically to let you know that there are different ways, different courses of action to do paraphrases, and providing that you learn and understand each one of them and use them to paraphrase text, you are going to master that process of paraphrasing beyond the idea that paraphrasing is reordering words. Okay? But I'm not stopping here. No, I want to complete the information of this webinar, providing you some suggestions that may help you write better paraphrases. Okay, so this is the moment in which I give you my tricks and tips. And I know that you love them. Okay, here you have some suggestions to help you master paraphrasing. And the first one is very useful because it asks you to put yourself in the reader's shoes. If you do that, it will be possible for you to approach the paraphrasing task asking yourself, what does the reader need to know? Because sometimes you have the perception that that you have written what you have in your mind. But then when somebody else read that text, then you realize that not, or that person is not interpreting your text as the way as you think it should be interpreted, because you really didn't write all the things that you had in your mind. So always ask yourself this question: what does the reader need to know? The answer to that question would help you write down a more precise and accurate paraphrase, since you would not rely on what you know, but on what the reader doesn't know. And that obliges you to provide them that specific information. There are other useful and interesting suggestions that I have written here in this slide, and that you can have on your desk so as to check them when paraphrasing until you get used to them. So another suggestion is that you print the suggestions so you can check them when you are doing this. Okay? And these phrases, this is also very useful for you. These phrases and expressions help you, or will be very useful for you, since they will help you create a text that is not boring due to the repetition of the same phrasing. I know just one phrase, two phrases about paraphrasing, and then I use it over and over again. When I read that kind of text, I remember my beloved Freddie Mercury, who said, "Do whatever you want with my music, but the only thing that you cannot do is make it boring." And that's what I like to tell you. Don't make your paraphrases boring. And here you have different ways of doing that. So this is the main idea of this webinar. You are required to avoid plagiarism. And one of the actions you may perform to avoid that is paraphrasing. The last part of the main idea illustrates a decisive element of academic writing: comprehension of ideas. You cannot discuss what you don't understand. Don't believe, and pay attention to this, don't believe that you can disguise your ignorance using many words and dark structures. Okay? Oh, I'm not quite sure about what I want to say, but let me put many words here, some change the order in different ways. No, perhaps you think that you can disguise your inadequacy to do the paraphrase, or better, disguise that you are not understanding what you are talking about. But believe me, supervisors, committees, and professors always realize your intention. And if they are linguists, that's for sure. Okay? Here you have the list of sources cited today, and that may help you go further the basic information presented. Finally, for the presentation, I want to recommend you Friday academic writing emails, because they can help you know know academic writing better and therefore improve your text. And I also want to invite you to next Tuesday webinar, which is, listen to this title, Hitting the Mark, Finishing Your Dissertation or Thesis on Time, on Task, and with Rigor. And I'm preparing it, trying to show you how you can do that in this uncertain context that we are living in. Okay, so that's my main focus that I want to do. But right now it's time to answer your questions. If you want to check a specific technique, I can show it again and we can analyze it if you want to. Okay, so it's time to ask. Let me see who I did. Oh, I didn't. Welcome, Antonieta. Welcome. Alice Musuba. Oh, she is 9644. No questions? Nothing that you want to? Vanessa says, on the slide titled, change the sentence structure and use different connected words. Okay, let me go there. Okay. In the paraphrase text section, why do you only put one citation at the end of the second sentence and not the first as well? Is there a rule about that? Let me see. Do you mean, well, the paraphrase text is a citation of one text written by Sanchez, okay? And when you cite the sources, you usually write it down at the end of the text. In this case, at the end of the paraphrase text. Okay, you don't say, for instance, in the last 30 years, EFL teaching models and principles have been used, and then abandon Sanchez to 2019, and then do it that again, which is something that the bad or the poor paraphrasing shows. Let me go there. I think that I'm not quite sure if this is what you are asking me, but you please feel free to point it out if it is not the way. Oh, here you have. Look at the poor paraphrases. This person say differentiation and so on is a way to encourage equality between the art approach and talent of the student, Thompson 2009, and then continue and then write it down again, Thompson 2009. No, the right way of doing that is the one on the right, just once. Okay. Does it answer your question, Vanessa? Let me see. Alice, thank you for the great presentation. Could you please repeat the name of next Tuesday topic? Sure. Look, hitting the mark, finishing your dissertation on thesis on time, on task, and with rigor. And it says, graduation comes packaged with students simultaneously trying to hit many targets in the bull's eye, because you are not in a vacuum just writing your dissertation. You have many other things to do. And the key is how you balance all those things. It can be exhausting and overwhelming. However, planning ahead with foresight and understanding can relieve much of the stress. And the point is that I'm going to present it not in the classical way of planning this action. I want to develop this webinar focusing on how to do it in uncertain context, in times in which you are uncertain about what will happen. Okay? And of course, the last part of that webinar will be a question and answers section in which I encourage you to write down or prepare your questions and then come here. If you attend to the webinar, and if you don't attend, you can send that your questions to my email, which is maria@pd.education. That's all. And then I'm going to devote the last part of that webinar to try to answer your concerns and your questions. BB says, hello, Professor, and great presentation. Thank you. Natch says, thank you for a great presentation. Thank you, Natch. Annalie, Maria, the paraphrasing as a definition part, please. How often can we employ that technique? Very, very often. Okay, very often. Let me go there. Why? Because the thing is that you are required to define all the variables, all the important elements of your work, and that you cannot doing it always using a direct quotation. You have to define in such a way, to define in such a way that you show your understanding. For instance, look at this. You read a source and then you find this definition. Student attitude is the student's predisposition to react or respond positively and negatively toward the educational environment. Then you have to present this definition. So you paraphrase it in this way: Hunt, and then you acknowledge the source. Hunt 2016 defines student aptitude as the tendency, instead of predisposition, you are using a synonym. A student has to behave instead of respond positively or negatively. You say behave in a negative or positive way when interacting in an educational context. And that's completely different, especially the last part, to the original text. You have combined a change in the structure of the definition, including the author at the beginning of this text, and you have also used synonyms and also have changed the structure. Three different things in the same short text. Vanessa, yes, you did answer my question. Okay, Vanessa. Miriam has to go. She had to go earlier, and she says, thank you so much. Annalie, you make the steps so simple. Well, they are simple. I mean, when you define a course of action to do something, the ultimate goal is to make it easy. If you complicate it, then what are you doing? You are not helping, right? But in this case, these courses of actions have been created to help you do the paraphrasing process. What you have to do is to try different ones of them and find the one that you consider that really fits your cognitive style, your learning style, because you feel comfortable with it. Okay? But when you check them, they have to be easy. If you find a course of action that say you do this and then you move there and then you go back to the first one and then you move to the 10th one and then you go back to the 5th, oh come on, that would not be a good, a useful tool to use, right? So that's why they are simple. Which doesn't mean that they are a piece of cake. It will be a piece of cake if you practice and practice and practice. Okay? Any other question, any other concern, any other things that you want me to clarify? Annalise says, the problem is that often students think they have to sound intelligent and use jargon without realizing the simple is best. Yeah, that's what I tell you. That most of the time, when a student try to believe or try to show or try to, as you say, sound intelligent, most of the time, the real reason is that they haven't understood what they have read. And therefore, they don't want to show that they didn't understand what they read, and they decided, let me sound intelligent, then let me complicate this using all the words and make it different changes. And at the end, they get absolutely lost, and every reader can realize that. I mean, you can do that when you are, first of all, you have a very deep mastery of the language, first of all. And second, when you have really, really understood what you have read, then you can play with the words to show how intelligent you are. But take care, because you can get the opposite product. Very helpful. Gracias, Professor. Until next time, Hector. Okay, any other question, any other concern, any other thing you want me to clarify? Okay. Annalene asks, Maria, if I had to play you a verbs of a song to describe how I experienced the webinar today, oh my dear, I love your creativity. It would be, you are simply the best. Part of Tina Turner's song. Thank you. Excellent. That's over. Thank you very much, Emily. Uh, you are creative. You are very creative, and I love that. Not because you are, you are trying to connect me into that creativity, but because you can do that. And that's the point when you are learning. I'm going to stop the recording, and then let's see what's going on. Thank you everybody who registered for this webinar, especially for the people who attend today or attended today. And you are invited to next Tuesday to travel within the uncertainty to get to our goals. Bye.